Well, good morning. It's Motivational Monday, and how do we do it? We just do what we gotta do. Famous quote by Miss Angie Stone. I don't know if you all heard uh, R&B artist Miss Angie Stone died in a tragic accident early Saturday morning, and wow, just so many people that are leaving us. Parts of this is going to be about Angie Stone because I feel like any person that has done such hard, legendary work should be remembered. And I just want to remind us all of fragility and how it works in our lives. We think about time and we think about time being of the essence. What I love about learning from fragility, time, is that everyone will have a last conversation with their loved one. Nobody knows the time, nobody knows the place. That's not for us to know. But then there's something that I want you to think about. The conversations that we have with each other, the last words spoken. Did we even reach out to that person? Are we thinking about reaching out to someone? I asked today that we be motivated on this Motivational Monday to think about it and not to use life as if it is promised to us. Are you going to come in, Trish? We must realize that as we are thinking about life, what are we doing with this fragility? We're going to remember today not only legendary R&B artist Miss Angie Stone, but we're going to talk about our time while we're still here. You know, someone gets in a car or someone does something and they are indeed doing positive, they're alive. No one plans on leaving, and especially not in the way that she did. Good morning, Trish.
Good morning.
But I'll tell you this, we must give some thought to how we're going to live our lives. What are you motivated to do? You know, some of us are creatures of habit, doing the same thing every day in the same way every day. What about you? Life is fragile. It can easily be broken. Things, circumstances can easily change our life in an instant of time. Today's podcast is fragility. I want us to think about what that means. You know, we're alive, so let's think about it now. When we think about being easily broken or damaged, words, and I must say that even some of my words can be damaging, can break a person. Do we listen to ourselves, or do we like to just speak? And our words become more than someone else's words. Let's take a look at that. So when we think about life and the longevity of all of us, how long we have been living, what have you done with your lifetime? What would you like to do in your lifetime? Sometimes we may not get to say we're sorry because we didn't take the opportunity. Banking on the people that we are around or around us, we're going to put, if you will, a visionary for you. A table. Can everyone think about a table? It could be small, big, round, square. Can you think about those who are at your table? Who would you like to put at your table? Sometimes friendships are broken because of things that have been hurtful. You learn to forgive, but you still have broken and fragmented. Sometimes you want that back at your table. We think of family, and it's for everybody that's out here. Today's message is to motivate in honor of thinking about R&B legend singer Angie Stone. If you don't know who she is, that's your homework assignment, to listen to her music. Her daughter at one time had said and reminded her of working hard, but working hard to live. Some of us, we are hard workers, and she was a hard worker in the industry, and she speaks of not being able to have been paid properly for that hard work. And I thought about her daughter's quote to her mother. You can't get those moments back, because who knew that she would die of such a tragic accident? You're in an accident, and then as your car rolls, an 18-wheeler comes. If that isn't enough, we don't know what life is going to present to us. Because, see, we're used to the living. That's why we cry when people we love, people we've sat at our tables, even in music, what we have brought to that table. And remember, I ask you to think about a table. We're going to go back there in this discussion. Fragile or fragility, when we have been hurt or easily, emotionally or mentally damaged. What do we do? How do we look at our being fragile? Life puts no time limit on us. You know, it used to be where the older folks were leaving us, and the young would bury the older folks. But I find it very different to have the older folks burying the young people. Let's think about that. The last conversation that you had with someone, how did it leave them? And when you had that conversation, did you even think about the last conversation, or did you take it for granted that you would see them tomorrow, the next day, in a minute? Because some of us aren't afforded that opportunity right here, right now, on this Monday. I want you to be motivated for something, because families, we take liberties with family because we're born to that family. And for those of you who are saying you didn't ask to be born, well, aren't you glad you have a family? How do we spend our time with them? Now, I'm a person that I don't chase after people, because I figure it works both ways. And I recently had my brother. I have two brothers. One has passed away, my oldest brother, but my brother that's under him decided to reach out to me. And it's been a long time. How do I receive that? What do I say? I haven't heard from you in such a long time. Why are you calling me? You must want something. No, I thought about time. In fact, I told him, we're getting older. We grow up. If you have siblings, if you're living in the same house now, you're going to one day venture. You're going to grow up. You're going to have your own lives. And that's what has happened at our table. Just think about the table that you have in life. And so we leave the table until the next time. And I have always said, don't let the next time we meet be at someone's funeral, because someone is going to leave here someone is going to leave our table. And as interesting as life is, we can't say who it's going to be, but we do know one thing, that somebody is going to be missing from the table. So at that table, I ask you, who would you like to see seated there when you come to the table? You know, people say, what are you bringing to the table? And it's not always food. There's been many conversations at my table, at your tables, but what are we doing with it? You know, because what happened this weekend with Miss Angela Stone could have happened to anyone, anyone's parents, anyone's children. The news made sure to get that out because many of us know who Miss Angie Stone is. But there are still so very many that the news doesn't even know that happened. Who's missing from your table and why? You know, we get mad at each other and we say things and we do things and we come right back and we expect everybody to come back the way that they left that morning, that evening, that afternoon. But some families have experienced life fragility. What are we motivated to do? When we think about who's missing at our table. And if you have your whole family at the table, what are you bringing to the table? Some of us may be able to fool ourselves into thinking we always have dinner, we always have breakfast together. I'm going to tell you something. You won't remember what you ate in 5 years, but you might go back to that time that you were at the table, that fragile table. And what is fragile? Fragile. And that's why I'm using a picture for you, because even without that table, what do you still have? The people that you love. Sometimes there are no tables. Sometimes people have to sit on the floor. Sometimes people just have chairs. But I'm asking you, what's your table looking like? Because you'll remember the conversations. You'll remember the laughter. You'll remember, excuse me, you will remember the conversations that were of impact. And you remember them so well that your brain will not let you forget it, whether it was a good time or a bad time. I remember a movie scene. I'm not going to say the movie. Well, there was a family who was at the table, and all of a sudden, things went awry. People brought out hidden secrets. And then that ignited fires at that table where the whole family started arguing and fighting, and it was just like real life. They didn't get to finish the food that was there. That family was damaged forever. Now I'm painting a mental picture for you so that you get it, because art imitates life. Whatever you're seeing on that screen has happened to someone, somebody, somewhere at some time. And we say we get it. You have at your table truth tellers, and they find a way to bring up things at the most untimely circumstances. Even if you have no family, there has been a lot of people who were born where they just don't have a table. They might sit on the floor with knees or legs crossed in a crisscross applesauce style, and they have their meals or whatnot. Are they less because they don't have a table representation? What are you bringing to the table? Representation of gathering together. The table symbolizes just a thing, but the people that are around your table mean so much more. Sometimes time goes by, and I want everybody to hear this, because we think about, wow, we're the only ones at that table, because every family situation is different, but we sit around our tables. There was an experience where an elderly man, that would come to his table every morning, and he would have his coffee or whatever it was he was drinking in his cup, and he would do the same things that he would do if his wife were still living. He missed her so much that his heart ached. Do you think he was lonely? Because some of us don't afford the opportunity to be lonely. We're too busy in family fights. We're too busy remembering what someone did or someone said. And I go back to think about what Angie Stone's daughter said to her. You're working hard to make a life, but don't forget to live the life that you're working hard for. And the hours of the day preceding Saturday morning or before Saturday morning, we don't know what conversations were had. But we do know that it forever changed life. And I noticed something in her Instagram post after her mother was tragically killed. And she writes, "My mommy is gone," with crying emojis. See, that's when we think about what we brought to the table. our last conversations, our last thing that was said. Life is very fragile. We leave, and as a mom, I think about things. My youngest and I were twins. We look alike. And I don't believe the saying, and I can't stand when people say it. Oh, you're my twin. That's why we butt heads. Think about that. What is that? You're free to say that, but what does it really mean to look like someone and you butt heads? Maybe you look like that person and you just look like them, but you're butting heads because you're so used to being together and you take it for granted. Perhaps, not saying that it's so, that person will always be there. What if you had an argument with one of your people, your loved one? Because even not related by blood are my soul people. That's why I ask you to think of a table, to think of a place setting, which is a table, because we all know what that looks like. What will you bring to the table? Because the people that may sit at my table may have no blood relation. And I'm sure that's so with all of you. Never take life for granted because you don't know. You don't know. How many times have we said, I just spoke to that person. I just talked to them. You go back in your mind when it is the last conversation and try to remember what was the last thing that you said to them. You won't remember the food, but you go back, excuse me, and you will remember even 1/10 of that conversation. I want you to think about your emotional fragility. When we think of how many times we have gathered together, maybe we had some tension, maybe we felt unstable, maybe there was someone sitting at your table that made you feel uncomfortable, or vice versa. But I want you to take the moment to access yourself when it comes to your being fragile emotionally. Do you remember the time when you felt like, I don't want to be here? Or maybe you feel like, I'm so glad to be here. We think about cultural gatherings. We're all different. People year after year have family reunions. Maybe some of us don't. Maybe we don't know. Maybe there's a few years between where we will gather together. But now when you think about your family, have you grown? Has your conversations blossomed? Or are you talking about past things? Past things that cause hurt and damage, or past things that have damaged and hurt those who sit at your table. How about thinking like a flower? We always use that as an illustration. You know, flowers grow in the springtime. In the wintertime, not so much, some freeze over, but let your conversations be as if it were springtime. Something to look forward to, something to hold on to, because today families are damaged. Where there is no mother or father, someone else has come to the table. But whatever your situation is, if you've lost a loved one, wherever you are, those tables are representing a place that you come to, and your conversation should be like springtime, because everything blossoms. Springtime and summertime I love because everything comes alive. You realize the fragility of life and the blossoms of conversation. Sometimes, even in our conversation, we are people that may take things or not to heart, and we don't come back to the table because we've been stripped of our worthiness. We have been scarred by the things said or done, or we have done that to someone else. And if the shoe does not fit for you, don't try to put it on. These are for the people that don't have the perfect families. And by the way, FYI, nobody's family is perfect. But when we speak about the blossoms of family, the blooming of families, like the springtime, because every family has its own situations, setups, and demographics. But do you see that love? Is love at one of the chairs? Or is love one of the meals? Something that you brought. We want to be sure that our table blossoms. I made a pact starting this week because I do love flowers. That's what should be in my office. Flowers, because they remind me of life. Think about that image. Before we started talking, there was nothing at that table. Did you guys notice that, or did you think about it? The first item represented flowers, blooming flowers. They can be any type of flowers that you like. They're fragile. Every petal, though detailed, though different, are like people. Those flowers are going to wilt away one day. Do you stop bringing the flowers? Do you stop blossoming the beautiful array of flowers? or a bouquet of flowers. The reason why I want to think about bringing flowers to the office because it's a reminder of conversation pieces. Your flowers are conversation pieces. Have you filled in your table with who's there? Can you see their faces? Sometimes those flowers wilt away and we have to get rid of them. We buy more, but no two are exactly the same. Every human living has feelings, emotional feelings. Think about it as you look at those who you have seated at your table, those whom you wished you could have the conversation piece just one more time. There were people at your table that are full of drama. Come a little closer. There are people at your table that have been full of drama. Are they there? There are people that you say, oh, them again. There are people that you say, what are they doing here? There are people that you wish would not add to your conversation because you just don't want to hear them anymore. And oh yeah, there are people at your table that you or I sit in judgment. We roll our eyes because we just don't want to hear what they have to say because we've heard it all before. I know some of you are probably laughing deep down inside because you know exactly what I'm talking about, because your table is not perfect. It's fragile, but it's not perfect. And then there are those people that are always depicted in the movie that you go, why did they have to ruin such a good dinner? And as everyone gets up and leaves your table, now is your time to dig in and eat, because you might as well enjoy the meal. It's okay. You can laugh. What I just gave you was the type of people that we deal with. Are you thinking of maybe not including them? Or maybe you're not going to go to grandma's or grandpa's or auntie or uncle because that person was at the table. Life is so fragile. Then there are people that the movie industry has done what? You're able to identify with some of the people that you've seen. I'm not going to name the movies, but maybe some of you remember the scenes. There was this one movie, it was a sequel to a movie prior. And this one couple, they were arguing back and forth and just everything. Very famous person played the wife of. And in the movie, what happened was the person got in the car, the husband got in the car and was hit by a car. And they then realized how much they loved the person. What were they fighting about? the loss of their child. When do we start to realize, wow, we were just together. We should have talked about this. Not in front of everybody, because there's going to be times where you're going to be at that table and you're going to be able to talk about things in private. Now, the scene that I just played for you, how many times has that happened in your home where you wished you could have, but you didn't? Or you would have, but you couldn't? Remember the blossoming that I talked about and the blooming that I talked about? Your tables. Remember that, because life and the things that you put on top of that table are very fragile. Even if your table is fragile. I remember having a table that wobbled. This table, and I had little tiny kids. And when you sat down, that table was rickety. But you know what I remember even more? My very dear friend fixing that table one day. You can take the raggediest table and make it something beautiful. Remember the blossoming I talked about. Representation of, okay, we both know that this table is unstable, and maybe the things that you're going to put on top of that table is going to fall because that table is unstable. But the things that you brought to the table are such good memories. Can you think of one? That table was fragile. But some of the most strongest conversations were at that table. Can you see it? What do we do with the people, the things that are said at that table? What was the last conversation like? Because if you have the illusion that everything is fine and everything is perfect, just go back in our conversation and think about it. Because it takes real humanity to think about fixing our tables. Did you get that part about how my friend fixed the table? She didn't throw it out and say, hey, I'll get you another one. She got the tool to fix that table. And you know what's even funnier? Or not like, haha, what's interesting is that I didn't ever recall that until memory until just now. You see how life is? Life recalls these things about that table. She took out the necessary tools to fix that damaged table. And we laughed as she was fixing it. Who's at your table? We'll be right back with more. We'll be right back. Vibetalkfacingthelionpodcast. Cause we're called vibetalkfacingthelionpodcast.
Feel free to be interactive and tell us your stories. We're also on Facebook and Instagram. Go give it a shot. Vibetalkfacingthelionpodcast.
We are back. As we think about fertility or being fragile, let's think about what we say if it were our last moments. I started out at the outset to say, or I've said already, that one day it'll be your last conversation. I've seen that as a quote, and I like that quote because I see the bigger picture. Because no one ever wants to think about your last conversation, but when you do, remember the fragile moments, because your mind and your heart is going to recall that. Because there will be moments that you just cannot redo, undo. There will be moments that you say, I should have. I wished I could have. The only thing standing between you and your table is you. Oftentimes when we have people over, I know for me, when I have people over, they say, what do you want me to bring? And when I get invited to their tables, I say, what should I bring? Bring your love, your laughter, your smart conversations, your flowers. And by flowers, what do I mean? Flowers to me represents life. It symbolizes living. It symbolizes every kind of conversation that's unforgettable. Before we go to Trisha's Treasures, I just want to give you one more thing about being fragile. If you're like me and you love flowers, or the next time that you step into a grocery store, go over and check out the flowers. There's an array of color. There's an array of smell. There's big flowers, little flowers, but each is a representation of a variety. And even if you had no literal flowers on that table, because that's just a centerpiece, what if your centerpieces of lively conversation been like? We'll be right back with Trisha's. We'll be right back. We're back with Trisha's Treasures and Trish.
So this podcast has made me think about how I spend my time with my family and the people that I love, the people that are at my table. And it's interesting we're talking about tables because me and my siblings were having a conversation at the table 2 days ago while eating pizza about our memories at school and what table we used to sit at, meaning the popular table or the drama queen table or the smart kid table or the quiet kid table. And we were discussing how we felt at our personal tables and friend groups that we had. And me and my sister, we are a year apart. So we always were at the same table, or we spent a lot of time together. We had mostly the same friends. So we were talking about how even if our friend group changed, like we still stuck together. Not just because we're sisters, but because my sister is my best friend and she considers me as her best friend. And we always spent a lot of time together. We always try to have the same classes. And during those times, it just made me think about when we were having that conversation like, wow, like, I hope that never changes because I'll always have her at my table. And I'm getting emotional because, like, it's so true. Like, who we have in our circle. That's what the table also can imply to some people. Who we have in our circle and in our groups and in our party. Who we have is very important because others impact us. They influence us, and how they influence us, we always remember. And that's the point too. We always remember what that person did or what they brought to the table or how we were able to talk to one another or who could we go to if we were having a bad day, who could we call at the table. And they always called me, to be real. To be real, I was the person they always called when they had a problem. So I was the person they called. I was the emotional supporter at the table when I needed my own emotional support. That was me, and that's what I brought to the table. And it became very overwhelming because um, I wasn't supporting myself emotionally. And I was at the point where I didn't want to be here anymore. And they didn't know that. I was busy trying to support them. And it's important to look at the people at your table and realize that, yes, you have your own issues, but be mindful that the people that you're looking to for support also need your ears. They need your listening as well. So I just thought that this podcast was very um emotional for me because at the end of the day, I I love the people that's in my circle, that's in my table, and I always think about how my table just it changes. And it's pretty hard sometimes to adapt to the change of your table and the people around it because you're so used to sitting at the same table. Like if you were in the same classroom, you're so used to sitting in the same seat and without even looking at the name tag that's on your desk, you're like, that's my seat. I sat here for 3 years. You shouldn't be sitting in the same seat for 3 years. But if you but if you go to that seat and you realize like I've been sitting here for 3 years, so this is my seat. And when you look at the name tag, it's like, oh, somebody else's name is on this seat. Now I have to get used to sitting somewhere else. I'm at the front now. I'm not at the back. What do I do? How do I adapt to this? And it's a real thing because some people, they don't warm up to change sometimes, and that's okay. It's important to be motivated to change and realize, okay, I see my table is changing, or there's less people at my table now. Why is this happening? And okay, I see why this is happening. And just be aware of what's around you and who you are. So I say all this to say that we all have our personal tables and we all are very compassionate about what's around our table, fragile about who's around us because the people at our table, they're supposed to be close to us. They are important to us, and that's what makes it so fragile and vulnerable because they're so connected to us. So it's important to be mindful of who you connect with at your table, who is making you fragile, vulnerable, and what is what makes you fragile and what makes you vulnerable.
Cause we're called vibetalkfacingthelionpodcast. Go check your favorite streaming platforms. That was Trisha's Treasures, and it will be Trisha's Treasures. Go check that out on YouTube and check out her music as well. And it should be down in the comments as well. You can find her. Trish, I told you the other day that I was looking to play some of your music, couldn't find it. I could not find it when we were opening up about the uh, group sessions. By the way, group session number 2 is going to happen at our location in Palmdale. So if you'd like to come and be a part of the group in person and on Zoom, it'll be live just like it is now. We're going to put up another newsletter. We want you to join us. Just having so many flowers of blossom for the things that we are putting out. Thanks, everybody. Trish, thank you for your amazing ability to be able to bring to our table here at Vibe Talk what you bring. Each day with you are like brand new flowers. So thank you. For everyone else, guess what? We can be found right here. If you want to know when we go live, follow us. Don't just like us, follow us. And our lines are always open for you to chime in about anything that you've heard or any questions you have, or if you just want to add to the conversations. You are the flowers at our table. Our office, or excuse me, our direct connect line, toll free is 888-721-9260. In honor of Angie Stone, I brought this to you guys because life is so fragile. Life is present within all of us. If you're listening, you're living your life. But what I would like to see is for us to fix our tables in a literal way and a way that symbolizes that you have fixed your table. We just got to do what we got to do. In closing, as Angela Scott said, go listen to some of her music. It's up now. Facebook, thank you, because everything is not about making money. We make our own money, and we're not waiting for anybody to make money for us. Just remember, I said that. Wherever you're listening, please let us know where you're listening. You can send even a text to us. We'd love to hear from you, hear where you're listening. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thanks, everybody. And this podcast is Fragility. We'll see you through the week. And the next time we do, I would like to challenge you to be and remember being. Have a good day. Because I don't want you just to make a resolution. I want you to think about. I was really about to lose it, then I got the vibe with it. I really took my time with it. I really love the ride with it. You really got the vibe with it. I took my time with it. I really love the ride with it.